Basically, the whole theme behind them is all through numerology and how letters translate numerically. And then from there, I use the numbers and a color palette based on the energies that surround those numbers. I can see them as something more. It's deeper than what's hanging on the wall. And where I get off on doing this is between the person. You would be in the creation process. Your date of birth, which is month, day, and year, which can all be added to a single digit. The color palette is determined. There's primary and subsidiary colors that vibrate to you. You know, to get interest from other people in this is important because then it's going to add to how the work grows. When you have your portrait taken, you'll have that say. In doing the numerological reading, I'm trying to make elements not visible to the eye, but visible to the mind, to the conscious mind, elements that are there in the unconscious, and to do that, to make you see them. Do you get it?
So you talk to people and figure out numbers that correspond to their personal characteristics?
Yeah, that's what it is. There's certain energies, whether you're more ambitious than somebody else, you'll have more of those numbers that lend to being ambitious.
But I don't have any knowledge of numerology, so it just looks like pretty colors and shapes to me.
Mm-hmm. Understand.
How did you get in this program?
I'm really mystified by your premise, but I can't imagine how for a minute you think that the viewer is going to look at those and get curious and learn all about numerology so they can decode this when there's all sorts of other stuff one might do with their day.
Does it make you interested and want to know about numerology?
No.
Will you go?
Not for a minute.
Not for a minute.
Did it ever occur to you, that maybe you're so fascinated, you know, in other words, your fascination isn't mirrored by other people's, which is the nature of making art, that what we're obsessed by, isn't what other people are obsessed by.
So these like kind of a tease because you've got sort of like a real intense experience of having this person and looking at them and talking to them and doing the numbers, but then this seems, you know, decorative and it doesn't seem rigorous in any way. The way you describe this, there's like a law and there's numbers and there's names and you're born with it, and you know that seems like it has a kind of rigor.
Well, I would have to do a personal reading.
I think that there's like a sort of disconnect between, you know, the system and how inevitable it is in the way you portray it.
If they framed the portrait, would it be 8 by 10 in the same frame next to their chest? It would have very similar aesthetic qualities as the pictures of the person. Would it not?
What happens between collaborating with the person, which is what you do when you make a portrait, no matter what, you have to collaborate with the subject, and the decisions, like Joanne was saying, of where to place things, what's opaque, what's transparent, what's in foreground, what's in background, and all of the formal, just compositional stuff.
Maybe if you saw yours, you would look at it and...
No, the frame is a question of naivete and taste. My colleagues seem churlish. I think what Scott is doing here is using a very, very particularized and somewhat rigorous, although fanciful system in a kind of poetic way, where he very intelligently structured it around a system that again is rigorous and rigorous-ish, but specific, and then made very lively, from my point of view, poetic, aestheticized jumps, which perhaps leads to unintelligibility, but that's okay. I think they're interesting to look at, whatever they mean, and I think they're even more interesting when I hear what they mean, and the fact that I can't figure out what the fuck, they're about, who in this room is being pictured, isn't a problem for me. So I disagree.
I just thought it was really, an interesting relationship between how we do things continuously, or I do, obsessively.
study here.
Look how fucking ridiculous this is. And this is like the most transgressive thing, you know. If somebody showed, you know, some extraordinary sexual act, it wouldn't have the power of this silly marker going on this pristine floor. There's real power in this performance, that she just stands there and we're all going, you know, spinning around and this thing is taking place.
She almost never does anything without a reason.
So, what's the deal?
I thought it was interesting to put it on top of maps and things like that to make the reference to, like, this is the space that I exist in, you know, on a less personal level. And then it gets to the floor plan of my apartment. And then it's a me, so it's, you know, existing from a macro to a micro level. This robot kind of is a metaphor for the life cycle process.
This robot has just done a much more interesting, very way off the map drawing than it's, I mean, it's more interesting for that, but it's no longer a metaphor for our constrained little repetitive existence, because that's not what it's doing.
All right, talk about your metaphor. I mean, whatever it is in the, you know, best laid plans of men, that things go awry.
I think, the reason I want to know why she's chosen the figure, I want to pin her down on the floor plan and the map, and the point of this is, what separates this from all those cliche drawing bots that the MIT Media Lab does, and Ohio State does? I mean, it's become this kind of trope.
But isn't it enough to make something this funny and this absurd?
Well, isn't it, that's what art does anyway? I mean, isn't one of the functions of art that it thwarts expectations?
Yes,
that
that's
it
right.
upends systems, that it plays with it?
It becomes art because
it's
you don't
half-assed.
take the system seriously enough.
It's art because
It
it's
becomes
half-assed. We're not scientists. There is no responsibility to make it make sense. There's no absolute craft, and there's no absolute knowledge, and there's no absolute way to do it right or wrong.
You know, particularly sitting here for whatever it's been, 15 or 20 minutes, and watching it make this real life, you know, real-time map. But I guess my question is that I don't know, as an artifact, that these sort of function in the same way without being near the same place.
That's what I mean. They sort of don't do this process justice as these dumb prints that sit on the wall. They're visually, you know, a little arresting, a little interesting, but this is way more interesting. I mean, this robot has all these human qualities of doubt and you know, it hesitates and it fucks up.
Yeah, but so why make it either or? Why can't you have both?
This is a critique. The whole point of us being here is to help Amanda figure out how to make more and better work.
That's not necessary.
Isn't it? No.